Hello, everyone. I think we are now live, so very happy to kick off the Shore Valley Ventures update. I am Isabel Smurfett. I lead the marketing and event strategy for Shore Valley Ventures, and today we're going to walk you through a few of our recent highlights and updates, and you'll also hear from some of our portfolio companies. So if you don't mind just skipping to the agenda slide, do you see? That's fantastic. So you can get a sense of what we'll be walking through today. Introductions, portfolio highlights, and then we'll also be touching on some of our recent highlights and portfolio successes, which is fantastic. So without further ado, I would love to hand you over to Barry Downs, SVP Managing Partner and Founder, who will kick off the webinar.
Thank you, Izzy. Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm Barry. Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted that you're able to join today for our Shore Valley update. And as Izzy mentioned, today we're going to give you an overview of and a snapshot of some of the amazing things that we've been doing in Shore Valley and some of the amazing founders and companies that we've been investing in. And I'm so looking forward to the presentations from every angle and also from Visgard today. And I think you'll be really excited by the progress these companies have made and the incredible companies and brands they're working with. But before we get into that, we'd just like to give you a bit of information about Shore Valley Ventures. So Shore Valley is a specialist AI venture capital fund that invests in AI companies across the UK and Ireland. You see a nice picture of us on the left-hand side of that slide. And on the right-hand side, you'll see some key information about the firm. So the first thing to note is that we're founders turned investors, that this particular team is chock full of people who've either worked in the software industry or who have built software companies and exited software companies. And I think that puts us in a privileged position to engage with the companies that we invest in and support them through their journey from their inception to becoming large and really significant companies. The second thing is we have, in terms of assets under management, approximately 150 million pounds, and that's spread across three funds, which we call Fund 1, 2, and 3. And the first fund invested in the UK and Ireland. The second fund is anchored by the British Business Bank and invests directly in the UK. So it's a UK-only strategy. And then we have a third fund that's investing in Ireland and beyond. Now, the reason I highlight that is I'm aware that there are some Mindflair investors on the webinar today and some Shore Ventures PLC investors on the webinar also. So Mindflair is invested in all three of our AI funds, and Shore Ventures is invested in the first two of our AI funds. And we've selected the companies today to represent that. So every angle today comes from our first fund, and Visgard comes from our second fund. We will, of course, talk about the third fund as well for Mindflair investors also. So as I mentioned, we have British Business Bank as an anchor. We also have Enterprise Ireland as an anchor. We meet about 3,000 AI companies every year to find the companies we're investing in. This year, we expect to invest in 9 to 10 new UK companies. And in Ireland, we expect to invest in 5 new Irish companies as well. So quite a few investments. And of course, we have follow-on into some of our existing companies as well as they're growing and scaling. And then the final point I'd make on this slide is just a bit of background on our investment strategy. So we've really been investing in the trend of AI well ahead of everybody else. We've been doing it since 2017. And in fact, our first exit of an AI company was back in 2019. That's a company called Artomatics, and that was a generative AI company in the video game space. And that was doing generative AI before it was kind of a popular word. We'll talk more about some of the companies that we've invested in and exited later on, and some of the companies that are really doing incredibly well in the portfolio as well. And we'll try and give you a sense of that as we go through the presentation. Um, so just to talk a little bit about our strategy before we go any further. So we invest in pre-seed and seed companies. Now that's typically when a company has a team, it has a product, the product is in the market, has some market validation, and we're typically investing to help the company go from that initial validation to, significant ARR, typically 1 to 2 million in ARR. And then those companies will typically do a follow-on round in which we'll participate to maintain our percentage. We're equity investors, so when we invest in a business, we invest for equity, and we're conviction driven. We're all in on AI. We really understand this space. We have deep technology knowledge in the business, and of course, lots of founder experience as well. Our track record, we're top quartile track record in that first fund. And the Fund 2 and Fund 3, which are newer funds, are really performing very well. And we can see great growth coming out of the companies. And in terms of how we invest, as I mentioned, we're equity investors. Typically, we'll invest up to about 1.5 million pounds or euros at the initial stage in the seed or pre-seed. That can vary. That can vary from a very early stage company. It might be 250K all the way up to about 1.5. I'd say the average check size that we're writing at the moment is about 750K. We target approximately 15% equity ownership in these companies, and we will follow on up to 5 million. And as a venture capital fund and firm, we invest as a venture capital firm, so we have significant rights on the equity instruments that we write. We're not investing in ordinary shares. It's a preferred class of share. And also, we typically go on the board of the companies that we invest in to support the growth of the company. And DC later on will talk about our platform process and how we work with the companies to add a lot of value. So with that, you might want to. With that, I'll hand over to DC, who will tell you a bit about the team and some of our operations.
Hi, everybody. My name is DC Callan. I'm a venture partner at Sure Valley Ventures. I'm going to tell you a little bit about us as people. Obviously, in the business that we are in, it's very important that we have a deep understanding of the sort of businesses that we're investing in. And I think you'd have to look far and wide to find a team, luckily enough, like the one we have. I think one of the most interesting things is, as a team of partners in the fund, we are all experienced entrepreneurs ourselves. We've essentially all been on the other side of the table. We've all raised venture capital at some part in our journey. So as a consequence, it makes it very easy for us to understand the founder mindset when they do come in looking to us for money. So obviously, I'm not going to go through everybody here, but we have a team that's spread across the UK and Ireland. And I think the other unique factor about a lot of us is an awful lot of us come from technology backgrounds. So for instance, Barry, Brian, myself in particular, even though, our academic backgrounds would all be engineering based, computers based, but in a lot of the businesses that we ran ourselves, we would have been the revenue drivers. We would have been the guys who had to take, interesting technology and work out how we're going to make money for not just us, but our investors. John, the other venture partner in the firm, John is an experienced CTO and software developer who has had experience working for some of the biggest companies in the world, like IBM and Red Hat. We then have our team of principals and associates and analysts who fundamentally are out knocking on doors, attending events, and really getting deep into the ecosystems of both the UK and Ireland to try and find those things. I mean, venture capital is not the business of reading newspapers and seeing the companies that have already made it. Our job is to find the companies, in their nascent stages when almost the ideas are just getting started themselves, and try to support those companies then in their initial startup and scaling phase. We're supported then by an incredible kind of back office team from Greg, our CFO, who has, tremendous experience in managing capital, both in company format and from a finance format and from an investment format. And as well as Isabel, our marketing manager, and Rebecca, who looks after our own HR for us as such. I think to summarize then, like if you take everything that Barry has said, and if you take the team, you come back to why us? Like why is it that we are seeing the success that we're seeing as a fund? And I think in a hyper competitive world of venture capital, I think there's probably four key factors that explain, why we're seeing the success we're seeing. One of them is just that very notion. We are all former operators turned investors. We deeply understand what it's going to take, sometimes more than the founders knows, what it's going to take for somebody to transform that AI technology into a great AI product, and that great AI product into a great AI business. We have a deep, deep technical knowledge, and I would say nerdiness almost, about AI on a daily basis. While other teams would have water cooler talk about the latest sports results, we're talking about the AI that was released in the last 24 hours. The investing ahead of trend since 2017 is important, not as a humble brag of any description, but what it actually means on a purely practical level is, while a lot of people who've just maybe started investing in AI in the last year or two are still getting to grips with the difficulties of commercializing these technologies, we have a track record now of nearly 9 years of helping founders commercialize their technologies. So we are, with the problems that some investors are having in pains now, we solved 3 or 4 years ago. And then I think also what's incredibly helpful is, obviously, Barry, John, Brian, and myself have significant personal experiences of exits, both in terms of to the public markets and also in mergers and acquisitions. So while in the early days, a founder may not be thinking about how their story is going, how the story of their company is going to evolve to the next phase, we are always thinking about that in terms of the returns to our own investors. I'll just fly through this again, just for this to be very specific. The challenge that you constantly see in venture capital is, how do you pick the right companies? And I think a lot of companies, they operate on what we would traditionally refer to as the spray and pray strategy. They put a small amount of money into a large number of companies. They say a prayer to the gods of capital, and they kind of hope that things will work out. This is very much not our strategy. As a kind of a small to mid-sized fund, we're very protective of our capital, and our main focus is actually on betting on the right people. And I think we're very well equipped to understand the characteristics that make up a great founder, having been founders, having worked with founders. So I think the advantage it gives us is where somebody else really does. A lot of venture capitalists use the term, we're making bets on, we're kind of taking this chance. I think it's a lot more scientific and a lot more strategic for us. We have this operational knowledge where, pretty much every time we ever invest in a founder, there is that moment where we can see the next 10 problems this company is going to have before they can. And the trick for us is that once we've made an investment, we want to benefit that founder by giving the benefit of our experience. We don't run their business for them. That's the bet we're making on them as individuals, but we want to give them the benefit of our experience. This combination of operational and technical knowledge has been a huge benefit for us as a business, because it's created a circumstances where we are genuinely seen as thought leaders in this particular space. One of the very nice things I've experienced since I've joined Sure Valley is that actually because we're seen as thought leaders, we do get invited into a lot of deals by other venture capitalists who maybe are struggling to work out the operational due diligence or the technical due diligence around a deal. So for us, it's very, very important to us that we constantly are demonstrating in the market this expertise. And we do that by speaking at a lot of events across Ireland, across the UK, We have a bunch of events coming up before the end of the year. And then we also believe that, that knowledge that's out there, we believe in sharing it. Selfishly, we never share the latest thinking that we have on everything. So we'll always maintain that slight edge over people. But, in the last year, we've released white papers both on the idea of navigating AI investments and also we did a 2025 predictions white paper, what we thought would happen in 2025. And having gone back and read it the other day, I think we're kind of 10 for 10, Barry, really, which is a good way to be. We'll give you
Fantastic.
access to both these white papers as
Oh
well.
yeah, I was going to say, if you've not seen those white papers,
Yeah.
please go to our website, svv.ai,
Yeah.
and they're available there. We would love you to read them and give us some feedback on them.
Yep. Continuing in terms of like the last thing I'll say just on terms of our strategic advantages, we as former founders, like we are big believers in the idea of giving back to the ecosystem because like startup ecosystems, as inherently complex as they are, one standard usually hits true. You give back and usually karma delivers back to you. So we have an incredibly strong network, both in Ireland, the UK, and beyond, in terms of working with ecosystem partners such as, in the UK, Tech Nation. In Ireland, there's an organization called Scale Ireland. I'm one of the founding partners of it, where, we want to see not just individual companies succeed, but we want essentially the whole industry to succeed. So we always try to involve ourselves in these organizations to, I guess, help the ever evolving ecosystem. On a practical level, in terms of our companies, we have a huge number of very deep partnerships with some of the biggest technology companies in the world. And what I will say is, a lot of these companies have programs where they interact with venture capitalists, and we're members of all those programs. But this is deeper for us because this again is based on our background as founders, having myself built companies that were built both on Microsoft technologies that scaled and were sold, and also built companies that were built on AWS technology that was sold. I'm not just a VC to some of these people. We were very strong corporate customers of a bunch of these. And then, with companies like Stripe, we have an event next week with Stripe and the Irish Strategic Investment Fund, Ireland Sovereign Wealth Fund, where I'm running a panel for them. And probably one of the best partnerships we have, and obviously we're very proud of, is with the richest company in the world to a degree, NVIDIA. We were delighted last year to be the very, very first venture capital firm in the world to run a masterclass for NVIDIA. So we ran that on the topic of turning great AI technologies into great AI businesses. And we've continued this relationship over the last 18 months. And now look forward to, we've another speaking engagement with them before the end of the year. These partnerships are great for marketing purposes, obviously, but given when we're working in a world like AI that is evolving on a near daily basis, having direct access to information kind of before it comes public as to like what are NVIDIA doing next, what are Microsoft doing next, etc., that can be extremely strategic for our companies and what they get up to.
Fantastic. We also have really deep connectivity to the university systems across the UK, Ireland, and actually the world as well, to be honest with you. Part of my background is I ran a leading research institute in my history. So I've got connectivity to universities in Silicon Valley, US, Europe, and also Asia as well. But specifically for us hunting for great new startups, the relationships that we have with Imperial, with Oxford, and with Cambridge are very important to us. And in fact, we'll be announcing very shortly a new spin-out from the University of Oxford that we've invested in, where we're leading the round, which is in a very, very important area, which is critical decision making using AI in some very important sectors, including defense. When we get to the Visgard presentation later on, we'll see what Visgard is doing for defense in the UK. In our Fund 1, we had VividQ, which of course came out of Cambridge. We're connected across the university system, across the rest of the UK as well. And we've also had many spin-outs come out of universities in Ireland as well. And I want to highlight one thing that we're actually doing, which is an exemplar for all the universities, I think, which is a super connector with Imperial that myself and DC and George and a number of the team members are working on. And that is where we can get in early with researchers in Imperial that are either late stage PhD or immediately postdoc and help them orientate their research towards the market so that we can actually help them spin out of the university and create kind of dynamic new technology companies in the UK. So we're very excited about those relationships. They are a core part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. For example, I think both DC and I were in different universities this week speaking with the heads of research and also individual research groups and researchers themselves. It's a very important activity that we have on an ongoing basis. We'll touch more on that in the context towards the very end of this webinar. I'll talk through a little bit how we do origination, and this is just one component of our origination, but obviously a very important part of it. Great. Let's talk about our investment thesis. Do you want to do this one, DC, and I'll do the next couple? Yeah.
So again, you know, as we've mentioned, given the background that we have, we have a very we are all in on AI. We believe that AI is going to really define the future of how we work, live, and interact with technology. Given the you know the constant we'll say hype around AI, you know, I often think about like what's the easiest way to explain the impact that AI is going to have on society. And I think the simplest way to think about it is AI is a technology wave, not a technology trend. So we're all familiar. We've gone through cycles where, oh, everything is about fintech, everything is about health tech. But there've really only been two other technology waves in history. One was the advent of the internet, and one was the advent of mobile phone technology. I'm proud to say I was in University College Cork when both happened. So I feel like I was around for both of these trends. AI is going to similarly have a similar effect on society. And the way I constantly say to people is, will you be able to exist in business without AI? Yes, you will. But it will be the functional equivalent of running a business without the internet and without mobile technology. So there's a real question around why would you, you know, if it's going to give you considerable advantage. The other thing that we're going to see around AI and where AI will fit into society is even if you're not building a technology, you know, a product focused on AI, using AI in a business is predicted to reduce, you know, the cost of running a business by anything up to 30 or 40%. So we are not dealing with something that will be optional for organizations. It's going to be compulsory. It's just a question of when and where. So we're in a market that's just going to grow constantly over the next few years. We are already seeing traditional industries adopting core AI in terms of everything from improving productivity around manufacturing. We are seeing it in every element of cost and data. We lived through a big data revolution where we all heard everything was about big data, everything was about data collection. The problem is we never had the people to do anything with the data. And we're going to talk later about like some of the companies we've invested in, like Jade, who are now, you know, taking areas like financial services and completely transforming their ability to do work. In that way, like AI agents are really poised to just transform whole industries. And there is a whole discussion and debate around are they going to replace mankind? Are they going to replace jobs? I think it's similarly to all the people who thought the internet would destroy media completely, etc. It's everything is going to be about evolution. I mean, I think in Sure Valley are strong believers in the idea of investing in technologies that, you know, enhance human productivity. We tend to see everything in terms of not humans being replaced, but actually humans being augmented by humans and agents working together. So these sort of foundational core AI technologies, one of the key advantages for us as investors is that it is fundamentally easier to build from a blank slate than it is to be a traditional incumbent and have to pivot into AI. So large companies that want to suddenly adopt AI from a product point of view have a whole bunch of previous technical debt, technical issues that they need to resolve. So for startups and scale up companies, there is this period of time where they have this first mover advantage on big industry. That's why we're already seeing kind of newcomers over the last 12 months take unbelievable growth opportunities because essentially the big companies, it will just take them a long time to catch up.
That's awesome. Thanks, DC. This slide is a bit of a summary of our investment strategy and also a kind of a stack diagram of different AI markets. So starting at the bottom, you've got compute. So think NVIDIA. Going up the stack, we've got foundational models. Think OpenAI, think Anthropic, think Gemini, for example. At the top of this, you've got the cloud superscalers. Think about AWS, think about Microsoft, for example, think about Google. So we're not investing in these areas, mainly because it takes billions to invest in these areas. And also, they're really laying the foundation for the companies to come. We're investing in the companies that sit on top of the cloud stacks. And so this diagram shows how we break that market down into, for example, agent technology, orchestration, dev tools, security, and vertical AI solutions. That's agentic AI that's solving very specific problems in a business, automating specific business problems. Really super hot area with lots and lots of opportunity. This slide breaks that top of the diagram down, and what we've overlaid on top of it are our last few deals. So really the last 12 months worth of investments. And just to very quickly go through them. So Momentum is the AI for customer care, for call centers, making tremendous progress right now. Capably is an agent platform for the media space, super high growth company. Gentech is an AI agent middleware platform just been accepted onto the AWS program, and I believe got $1 million worth of AWS credits for being accepted.
Only 30 companies in the world out of thousands selected for that.
Absolutely. So incredibly high tech company. Kerno is in the AI dev tool space, which is a super hot space. Think about Cursor, think about Lovable. That's the space that Kerno is playing in. It's got a brand new offering in that space, which is very exciting. Then we're going to see Visguard, which is kind of AI for defense. Vortex IQ is AI agents for e-commerce. Inephany is a beautiful area, which is the fine tuning of large language models, super hot area. And Literal Labs is helping develop the next wave of intelligent chips. So see Literal Labs in the same as a future NVIDIA, for example. These are just the last few investments that we made. There's a few that are unannounced, including an AI for compliance in healthcare, and also the spin out from Oxford as well that we'll talk about later.
Sorry, it's worth mentioning too, Inephany there. Inephany also happened to be selected for the AWS accelerator. So of the 30 companies worldwide, 2 of them are actually investees with us. So it's going to be a great opportunity for funds in different jurisdictions to work with each other.
Thanks for highlighting that, DC. That's a very important thing to say. So we are going to talk about some of the companies in the portfolio, and then we're going to go on and have presentations from 2 of the companies in the portfolio. And I think one of them has just WhatsApped me. So let me just check that. Yeah, great. They're ready to join. So this is the first fund portfolio. And there's a number of very interesting companies in that portfolio, both historically in terms of Artomatics, which I touched on, which was the exit in the computer game space, and also Get Visibility, which was an exit earlier on this year in the security space. And Get Visibility was acquired by ForcePoint. But before that acquisition, they also partnered with ForcePoint to provide a security layer for OpenAI's enterprise version of ChatGPT as well. So very understandable as to why, super important technology as to why it was acquired. In terms of a couple of other companies I'd highlight that are in the portfolio right now, I think Cameramatics is a company that's doing AI for managing fleets of vans, fleets of trucks, very active in the UK, active in Europe, and also very active in the US at the moment. Really significant growth in that company, really significant ARR in the company. And I think watch out for some fantastic news from that company as we go towards the end of the year and into early next year. Then we've got David on from every angle in a couple of minutes. I think this company is in the kind of agentic vision space in AI, which is this new incredibly super hot space. David will talk about it, but he's working with some of the most amazing brands in the world, all over the world as well. So I couldn't be more excited that David is going to be joining us in a moment to present. And then, of course, we've got companies like Xenos that are really doing very well at the moment. And then we've got Napster as well. And I think look out for some really important and very exciting news from Napster as we go into the back end of this year as well. So I think we've already delivered incredible results out of this portfolio, but that is just the start. There is a lot more to come. So please stay tuned. And actually, if you want to get news directly from Sure Valley, anybody who signed up to this webinar, we've put on our news list. So we will give you news as we have it directly via email. But please also follow us on LinkedIn and follow us on Twitter. Those are very important channels. We're putting news out almost every day on those channels. So we really like to keep you up to date as to what's going on. So then when we move on to the Fund 2 portfolio, I'll hand you over to DC.
So Fund 2 is where the journey begins for me. I joined just about a year into Fund 2, and already we'd invested in some amazing companies like Retinize and Jade and Capture, and then had a very successful investment period, probably over the last 2 years, 18 months since I joined. I guess to highlight a few of them in particular, starting off, Retinize, who are completely revolutionizing kind of how animation is done. I mean, this is removing the traditional animator's role and replacing it by individuals who can go into an entire VR world and essentially imagine a cartoon being built from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. Incredible work being done by this Belfast-based company. Jade have built an incredibly difficult technology to build, which is AI agents in highly regulated financial services spaces. So think about all of the, you take note of the extremely tedious and boring tasks in financial services, approving share transfers, thousands of messages, tens of thousand messages a day going through a system. Jade allows an organization to kind of triage everything that's going on, categorize everything going on, and then automate as much of it as possible. Stylus are transforming education sector with an incredible piece of technology that is doing such a good job. They've already won multiple contracts with the Department of Education in the UK, and the founder, Dominic, delights in showing us photographs regularly from his trips to Downing Street. Stylus have essentially created technology that, using handwriting recognition, essentially can correct homework. Now, that seems like a nice to have, but when you take it that the rate of drop-offs for teachers in our education system is hitting kind of the 40% mark. And, the average teacher is adding about 20 to 30 hours a week of unpaid work in terms of correcting homework. Solving this problem has a tremendous impact, not just on schools, but the whole education system in general. And we're really delighted at the progress that Dominic, a former teacher, and many of his team who are former teachers and former ed tech founders are getting on with. Just to pick one or two others, Capture is an incredible technology that, whether you know it or not, you've definitely been exposed to it. Capture's computer vision technology is used globally by companies like Lime Scooters to essentially prove that they're parking the scooters in the right place. The scooters are undamaged. And essentially, Lime then used the data from the capture system to validate to local authorities and local councils that there may be scooters thrown all over the streets, but they're not Lime scooters. Purple Transform are working with people like National Rail. They are uh, they are creating a layer around security to essentially digitize the all of the data coming in from every form of CCTV camera, from smart CCTV cameras to the cameras that have been sitting on the lines for the last 10 years, and bring all that data into a platform that people working in the rail service can use to determine things like, if a person walks into a tunnel and isn't wearing a high-vis vest, notify this security thing. If more than 200 people are on a particular platform, please send extra porters to that platform. It really is creating an environment where a lot of the data that has been collected can now be put to practical use. We'll obviously be hearing from people like Visgard, but again, like LLM is a very recent investment by us into an extremely important area of marketing. So as we see people stopping using Google for search queries now and moving their search queries directly to OpenAI and to ChatGPT and stuff, LLM is a technology layer that's working with some of the biggest brands in the world to essentially put their information into LLM so that when you go search for your products, goods, and services, and when ChatGPT is making recommendations, your ones are coming to the top of that category.
Brilliant. Thanks, DC. Just to mention, Fluxmind is in the robotics space as well. And just to summarize, Purple's in the security space, and Visgard, which we're going to see today, is in the defense space as well. Finally, just to wrap up our initial presentation to you, these are the Fund 3 portfolio, which Mindflair is invested in. And actually, in addition to these companies, there are 2 deals that we're working on right now that should close over the next month or so. So this portfolio is growing fairly rapidly as well. Just very quickly, as I mentioned, momentum is transforming customer care. It's that whole wave of bringing AI into call centers and having AI answer queries. Mirror Security is a university spin-out, super high-tech company in an area of AI security called homomorphic encryption. And this team has done what nobody else can do. Very active, working in Silicon Valley right now. Look out for some incredible news from this company as we go through the future months. Gentech, we mentioned earlier on, one of those 2 companies on the AWS program in the agent middleware, Kerno in developer tools, and Dissect is in this area of helping production AI systems with guardrails to make sure that they do what they say they do. They have signed up some of the largest brands in the world. In fact, they have signed up the largest consulting and systems integrator in the world. And that company is taking them into large banks and other similar organizations to roll out their technology. So Dissect is a super high growth company as well. And then very quickly, the 2 that are coming into the portfolio, one is a vertical agentic system in sales ops, and another one is a vertical agentic system in the financial audit space. That is a space with a wonderful opportunity for that company. So we couldn't be more proud of the companies that we've invested in and excited about their prospects. And that brings us to Visgard.
Visgard.
Yeah.
So let me just, I'll just stop sharing there for one moment so that we can get Alex. And there he is. Hi, Alex. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Very good. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
I'm not sure if you're using slides. Could I
Yes,
ask you to
I've got
share them there?
slides. Yeah.
And then we'll leave this in your capable hands for a few moments.
Cool. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for joining, Alex. Great to see you again.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me. Hello everyone. My name's Alex Keogh. I'm the CEO and founder of Visgard. We're building a distributed AI-powered command and control platform to automate any defense and security camera system. So a little bit about us. So we're a team of about 19 people, veteran founded, as I used to be in the Royal Navy, and we're all security cleared engineers who are experts in the field of video analytics, distributed command and control, and precision platform control. We were founded about 5 years ago, and last year, Shore Valley Ventures led our seed round, which is a 1.5 million round, about December time. And then as a result of that, we had a CTO join, and he single-handedly wrote the software that is currently at Gatwick and Heathrow, protecting them from rogue drones, and was the head of technology at the Home Office. And you can see on the right side there, that's a list of our customers, and Parrot were a partner rather than a customer, but I'll talk about some of those during this presentation. So, as I mentioned, I used to be in the Royal Navy working on submarines. Did that about 8.5 years, and I left to become a semi-professional bass guitar player. Realized London's pretty expensive, so I better get a real job. So then I started to work for Kelvin Hughes, who make radars for various navies around the world, working in a startup-like environment called Security Solutions. And that company was bought by Hensoldt, which is a large German defense company. So in that role as a system engineer, I would travel around the world speaking to lots of end users about their high-end multi-sensor security systems. And everyone was always asking for their systems to be a lot more automated, because regardless of how expensive they were, there was still too much manual intervention trying to get it to find these kind of niche threats, whether that's drones or a small boat or someone crossing the border where they shouldn't be. So here you can kind of see a kind of me and my travels there. I think the top left one's quite interesting because that's us trialing counter drone technology at Munich Airport, and that was about 7 years ago now. So it's interesting to hear how there's now those challenges have surfaced at Munich with drones flying around. And that top picture there, that was at the Gatwick incident, which I was there with a counter drone system I'd helped to develop. So the challenges that I saw were that effectively the operators being overloaded by sensor data, particularly the visual sensor data, because we already know there's lots of CCTV cameras, but there's even more cameras going on drones, whether that's land, air, or sea, and more streaming data doesn't actually make their life any easier. So they're overwhelmed. And as a result of that, they're missing threats. So whether that is something like a drone or whatever it may be, some sort of kind of niche, more public safety use case, they're just not going to be looking at the right stream at the right time, even if they're the most attentive operator. And so you may think, well, if we use AI, we can just automate all of this. But it's actually very easy to do a proof of concept, but not to translate that into real world value, because as soon as you get out of a nice controlled proof of concept, these AI systems often start to fail when they're used in these kind of defense and security contexts. And so there's a bit of a kind of either an underestimation about how easy it is to actually achieve real world good results with AI. And then even if you were to be able to get some good working AI in the field, the challenge is now around not just helping the operator, but if they're not using AI, they're not going to be able to tackle the next generation threats that are coming from the enemy. So what kind of next generation threats are we talking about? Well, we've heard a lot in the news about swarms of drones, Shahed drones, for example, which could travel at multiple hundreds of kilometers per hour. They're currently being taken down by things like manned aviation, which the cost of these drones versus these really expensive systems that we're using to try and counter them, it just doesn't quite compute. And then we're going to see more and more drones versus drones, whether that's land, over land, air, or sea. So that's going to be a lot more proliferated. And now you can start to see there's more AI getting used in some of these systems, and then the enemy are starting to use systems to try and counter our AI. So there's this arms race between us and the enemy. And so unless we're going to start helping our operators to try and tackle some of these threats, they're just not going to be able to compete unless they actually have the tools at their disposal. So how's BizGuard trying to help with some of this? So our solution is, as I mentioned, a distributed AI-powered command and control platform to automate any defense and security camera system. So it's predominantly edge-based, so it will run on whichever camera it may be. So we've had it on long-range surveillance, drones, an unmanned submarine, CCTV, you name it. And it'll fuse other sensors, and it'll steer the cameras, steer the drones, and do everything it kind of needs to do to try and reduce the burden on the operator so that these threats are not missed. In practice, that consists of these two products, which is Fortify, which is the technology we've been developing over the last 5 years, which is platform agnostics and go on these various different platforms. It's field proven. It's TRL9. It's currently being tested in Ukraine and evaluated tomorrow by one of my team members who's over there. If that project goes, well, we're down to the final 3 companies in that particular project. And if we are the winner of that one, that could be potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of orders through of Fortify, using us as the back end and the front end system to automate that drone system. So that will help people with their existing camera systems try and automatically find threats over land, air, and sea. So let's say you then have, okay, I've got Fortify, I've installed it on my hundreds or thousands of systems. How do you actually manage all these various systems to make sure that they're working as effectively as possible? You're not just leaving unused, valuable data on these devices. You're not, if you're asked kind of where's the data come from, what is the performance level of the models, and all that kind of fun stuff around actually using AI at scale, that's where Unify comes in. And this is a new product that we started working on only as of December, and it's been the reason we've been able to do it is through the funding through Shore Valley, and this effectively is an ML ops / fleet management platform that is predominantly cloud-based, but we've also engineered it to be on premises as well for those who are a bit more security conscious. And this will allow you to manage your fleet of AI-enabled systems and convert models, prove compliance, which will get increasingly more important in the AI space with things like the AI EU Safety Act. And these two products together mean that we provide a turnkey solution to our customers to help them deploy and then continuously improve a fleet of AI-enabled assets for defense and security. So I've got a couple short, more conceptual type videos to try and illustrate a little bit about how Fortify and Unify work. So here we've got a scene, it's a bit dark, I hope you can see it. So we've got some pan and tilt cameras, they're looking around, one of them's found a drone. We've then launched a drone from a drone in the box, it's gone and intercepted. And then there's also this handoff between various pan and tilt cameras and a ground threat as well. And at the same time, Fortify is also being used on the CCTV systems there to identify threats in crowds. So you can already start to see how it's being used in a coordinated fashion. And so because you've got all these systems, they've all got some lovely data on them. And so we're gathering that data, trying to streamline the improvement process so that you can instantly retrain all your systems. And because everything's software defined, we're also now making all these systems able to operate without GPS. So there's like a nice software update there, which has gone with the model update, and having that go out to all the various different platforms in a nice controlled manner. So how does that translate to real world use? So here we've got a few examples of some of the applications. So one of the main ones is unmanned system automation. So drones, USVs, unmanned ground vehicles, plugging our AI into these systems so it will run on board the actual platform to try and provide that granular real-time intelligence. So not just there's a person there, but there's a person, he's armed, he came out of this vehicle, he's running towards a fence and things like that. And so we've won 4 DASA projects, which is effectively MOD innovation funding. And then also we've got one part of MOD is a repeat customer of ours as well. And they're using us to be able to provide the front end and the back end for their drone operations. We're also being used for long range security. So we have one US customer. Their end user is the department or part of the US government, and that is for border security. So there's only about 8 systems there currently, but provided that goes well over the next year, that could be over 1,000 systems to cover that border area. Counter drones where it all originally started. So working with police departments like Norfolk Police, we're deployed inside a UK prison with ongoing discussions to get deployed in more UK prisons for counter drone, and also National Police Chiefs Council as well. And then it's not necessarily all about defense. We're also kind of working in public safety. So trying to find armed people, trying to provide the earliest indication when someone might sadly try and take their life in a public landmark type location. And we've had prior projects with the Home Office. One of them was about £500,000 to try and tackle knife crime. So who are our customers? Our customers are predominantly medium to large defense and security organizations that could be private or could be government. And we estimate that we would save those companies about £4.5 million over 3 years and go to market 50 times faster than if they were to attempt to try and do an equivalent system in-house. Of course, even if they tried to do it in-house, I'd say it would be nowhere near as good as ours. But either way, if they've invested in the team and they started trying to build it, it was going to take them a good while to get anywhere close. And so we're selling directly to government, especially when it comes to MOD and in policing. We also work with integration partners, so primes, so camera companies, drone manufacturers, and things like that. And then also we try and go, we started trying to go direct as well in competitive procurement. So us pulling together a group of other small companies to try and bid for larger multi-million-pound contracts. And our customers include the likes of, we've worked with BAE, DSTL, Civil and Police, Norfolk Police, Ultra, Sazanti, National Police Chiefs Council, Evolve Dynamics, and we've got about 28 recurring revenue customers. So our business model is predominantly to sell software licenses, which are charged per data stream with a minimum of 2 streams. So if you think about a drone, it might have 2 camera streams on it. So we'll sell a license for that. We also recently started to have an annual development plan as well. So that means that if they're going to be doing any integration with our software, that there's an annual charge for that side of stuff as well. So that means they can put on as many of their internal systems as they want to support their demoing and their integration and testing. And then our hope is that in addition to that annual plan, they'll then go and sell it to their customers. And that's where that data stream comes in, data licensing. And in 2025, this year, we've 10x'd our ARR. So that's as a result of the last investment. We've been able to get a lot more recurring revenue from our software as a service sales. So what's next? So you'll see kind of a lot in the news about all these latest kind of new defense tech companies. And so our mission is to try and work with as many of those different companies as possible so that you may not realize it, but we're actually powering some of those systems behind the scenes. So on this particular page, some of these are customers, some of them were still in the earlier stage of discussion, so not necessarily customers just yet. But our hope is to kind of be almost like the operating system to power all these various AI-powered autonomous systems, and that AI part is actually going to be hopefully provided by us. And then also starting to effectively be the camera automation software for defense and security cameras everywhere. So whether that's CCTV or long-range cameras or drones, as inevitably there's going to be more and more drones doing more and more tasks for us in the real world. And so hopefully Fortify and Unify and everything that Visgar's working on can power a lot of the next wave of autonomous systems. And that concludes my slide for today. But I don't think they were taking any questions, but if anyone does want to reach out to me to ask any questions, it's alex@visgard.com. And I look forward to hopefully speaking to some of you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Every time I see you, you've gotten into something more and more exciting. It's
Cool, yeah, thank you.
It's been fascinating
exciting
over the
times.
last 12 months to watch the progress in, again, like we talk about the AI space, but obviously the space you're working in, you're dealing with evolving software and evolving hardware on a daily basis,
Super. Alex, thank you very much.
Excellent.
That was awesome. Really appreciate it. And now David Owens is going to join us from Every Angle. And just to give you a bit of background to introduce David, Every Angle was the last investment out of our first fund. and they've had some really explosive growth in the agentic vision space. And David, it's fantastic to have you on. Thanks for joining, and really looking forward to the presentation.
My pleasure. Thanks very much, guys. You know me, like any opportunity, I've been known to go to the opening of an envelope, right? If I can actually promote the Every Angle brand, and you'll never find me without the actual. Some will say I sleep with this on, so that's my point of fame, is right. Always be on brand. You can be that walking billboard. Really appreciate the intro, Barry, and look, today, what I'm really excited to share and show with you is brand new agentic products that we are already bringing to bear in the retail hospitality industry. It has been a story. We've been in business now for a little over 5 years. You know, as Barry would have mentioned, our funding rounds have been absolutely supported by Sure Valley, led by Sure Valley. And, you know, in terms of, I think it's a fantastic commentary around, as a founder looking in the UK and the Irish space, to have a specialist investor who really appreciates and understands, right, the AI space, because that's not always easy to understand. So it is really good to be able to have that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And what I'm going to do is, right, yes, I have a couple of slides. Slides, generally speaking, are kind of boring. Although I will say, like, looking at Bisgard, that's absolutely cool. Okay, so that's the exception I'll make to that. But what I'd really like to do is show you a little bit about how we do what we do, and then actually show you product. Just show you the product, because that's right. That's ultimately what customers are seeing. That's what they're buying. And that's, if you have questions or comments, however they may circulate or permeate in, right, that's what we actually want to go and get. But there's kind of an obligatory, you know, handful of slides that we'll power through. So let me go ahead and just get this all up and running here. It'd be a help if I had it from the very first slide and not the last one, right? So give me 1 second here. We're almost there. Yeah, okay, great. And I'll share my screen. Yeah. Okay, and yes, great. I didn't even have to ask. I got the thumbs up. You see, that's what I said around having a specialist AI investor, right? They get you. They just get you. You don't need to say anything. So, sorry, somebody called me there in Slack. So the basic problem that we are looking to address is the gap that exists between what retailers understand and can do about their customers online, right, in the e-com digital channel, and what it's possible to actually do in the physical retail world. You have this absolutely barmy situation where, you know, a teenager in a bunk bed at home using the most basic of analytics tools can tell you to a granular detail what is happening in a, you know, multi-billion-dollar e-com channel. And yet, when it comes to physical store operators who have hundreds or thousands of stores across a plethora of brands all across the world, less than 40% of visitors to a physical store leave any digital footprint. They are literally invisible. And so if you think about a classic sales funnel, the way most of these retailers operate is they see what happens at the checkout and they know nothing other than that. And so how can you go and optimize? How can you go and optimize that billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar physical estate of retail stores if everything is invisible? The answer is you can't. And this is where machine vision offers the ability to fill in those blanks. But that is only part of the puzzle. And so that's what we're going to show you today. So this challenge that we have is effectively, how can we bring these e-com grade analytics into the digital, from the digital world into the physical? But, and I promise there's more than one slide, I'll get to it, right? But my criticism of SaaS analytics tools and SaaS analytics vendors in general, right, of which Every Angle would have been part and parcel of, is that they're generally speaking predicated on the basis that we're going to generate some data, we're going to collect data, we're going to go through some transformation, manipulation of that, we're going to feed that back to you as more useful data. How are we going to give that to you in a way that you as a consumer normally natively consume information? No, We're going to give you a BI dashboard. We're going to give you charts. We're going to give you widgets. If that's not exciting enough for you, we're going to give you APIs. Why? So you can pull the data into other BI tools, and you can have more charts, and you can have more widgets. And it's all based on this idea and assumption that there will A, be the capacity of people in the organization, B, with the skill set, and C, with the just, do I even care enough about this to look at all of that data and then do something with it? And that is really where an awful lot of this breaks down. And if I look at the first number of years in EveryAngle's history, that is what we did. We generated this really interesting machine vision data, right? Which I'm going to skip on here. This kind of nice machine vision data, right, that you're seeing here, where we're using CCTV cameras. I should have mentioned that, right? We use CCTV cameras because retailers already have this, so no additional hardware required. Retailers love not spending money, okay? So we're going to help them do that. And you can see whether it's identifying people coming in through stores, capturing data points around age, gender, group size, helping them understand what their actual convertible entrance count is, their real sales conversion rates, tracking them all around the store. What are they actually engaging with? Amazing, fantastic, right? Except how it has all traditionally been delivered then to the customer is as a dashboard. And the challenge, as I've said, is, am I available to look at that? Do I have the skill set to interpret it? And then even when I do, and I take actions on it, where are those actions even recorded? Are they actually recorded? There's just a complete dearth of an audit trail. And if there's no audit trail, then we can't actually get into any kind of causal relationship for, well, we generated this novel data point, you did this with it, and therefore Y result was generated. So the whole quantification of it just falls apart. And with no quantification, where's the ROI? And if I can't show you as a customer where the ROI is, how am I going to convince you should buy more of this? I'm not, or it's going to be very difficult. So what we have done with our latest product, which now I'll go back one slide, which is called Horizons, right? And I'm gonna give you a live demo of this in a minute. The idea with Horizons is that machine vision, those cool computer vision data points that I showed you, they are a critical part of the mix. They are absolutely one of our key defensive moats because it is really, really hard to generate that. You can't just go and chat GPT, hey, tell me what products people are engaging with in the physical store. It requires deployment on sensors, an awful lot of machine learning, right? That is hard. And as an investor, right, in a fund which is investing in EveryAngle, that's fantastic. You want us to be doing something that's really hard, can't really be imitated very easily. But we have to make sure, and a thing that we've learned is, if I can tell you how many people are coming into a store at scale and how many of those are convertible, I'll filter out staff, I'll filter out minors. Think of a Victoria's Secret store who are a customer. Very common that children will enter with female adults, but those children aren't buying lingerie. Okay, that's just kind of stating the obvious. So counting them as potential entrances, all it's doing is giving you inaccurate conversion data. So that data, as interesting as it is and as valuable as it is, gets exponentially more valuable when we use it to actually contextualize what's happening with point of sale, with staff scheduling. And then if we start adding in things like weather data, local area data, footfall data, store rating reviews data, but we also then start adding in a whole plethora of other data. And that was really the genesis for the new Horizons product. The idea behind it was that, if I can get it working here. Do you know what? I'm just going to skip straight to the demo because I've had enough of the PowerPoint. I'm sure we all have. Let me go back here and just share this. Let me go into my Zoom so I can stop sharing that and start sharing this. Okay, so let's log in here. So the idea behind Horizons is it starts off
Sorry,
with
Dave, we can't see your screen at the moment.
I didn't click the share button. Sorry. Okay, that would help, right? So Horizons starts off with this data fusion layer. And the idea behind this is you can see here, if I go into security, I can connect with all my CCTV cameras here, right? It's vendor agnostic, but critically, I can also connect, say I'm using things like wireless data or observability platforms, all of my point of sale systems, all of my workforce management systems, even electronic shelf labeling, even security if I'm doing things like smart locks, HVAC systems, ERP systems, anything that is API native. We literally put our arms around all of this data, okay? And with our arms around all of this data, what can we do then? Well, what we can do then is we can add a marketplace of discrete AI agents. And these aren't general purpose agents around take a screenshot of a dashboard and put it into ChatGPT and tell me what you see. These are agents, and it's something which I'm convinced that there's huge value from an investment standpoint in looking at the discrete jobs of work that are done in a vertical industry, understanding the stakeholders, understanding the actual jobs that they perform, tasks that they perform, mapping those to specific line items on a P&L that a CFO or financial controller actually cares about, right, is actually spending money on, and then being able to go and say, that particular role or function, we can either amplify what one human can do, or we can actually consolidate it so that the work of 2 or 3 humans can now be done by one. And if we can do that, we end up kind of not oversimplifying it, but going to the CFO and saying, you currently spend X, you can now spend Y with an audit trail, with better efficacy. How much of this would you like, right? And it's super simple to be able to get started. So to give you a couple examples of what I mean by some of these agents, I'll start with one that's very simple to understand and then just add one on top. So if we have a look here under campaigns, so if we look at the marketing campaign agent, and let's just create a campaign. Then just to kind of tee this up, if you think about it, I should have said, and I will bring back up the PowerPoint in 1 minute just to show you that lovely, sweet, beautiful slide of all of these fantastic logos of customers that we have, over 91 brands from H&M, Primark, Disney, Starbucks, you name it, right? I'm thinking about getting all these as patches, right, on the coat so I can just kind of wear them around. We actually opened in the very first Primark store that's opened in the Middle East yesterday. We deployed in that just this week. We deployed in the Primark store, 3 H&M stores, Foot Locker stores, a whole bunch more as well. Anyway, if you take those guys who are operating and you think around their online digital channel, it's very, very simple to run a marketing campaign and to perform attribution, to know whether that campaign is actually successful or not. So the campaign might be that I want to target an increase in sales of a particular type of sweater amongst female millennials. Okay, I can do very granular targeting on Meta campaign platform. And then I can not only see if more of those items are actually transacted online, but I can see visitors, unique visitors to the site, if they sign in with loyalty or the social profile, are they hitting that demographic? How do they go throughout the funnel? Do they browse the item but not add it to the cart? Do they add it to the cart but not check it out? I can A/B split test all of that. And trying to do that in the physical world is kind of impossible, right? I would really question when you have a look at the attribution analysis that any marketeer does here, and Isabel, I'm not looking at you in particular, making any notes about people in marketing, but if you do that, it breaks down very, very, very quickly in terms of how solid that information is. So what you can do here in our product is say, okay, well, I want to run a campaign on Instagram. I want to target sales of certain products to a certain profile. I can actually create the campaign on Instagram directly from within Horizon. And critically, I can set the actual campaign targets on it. So I could say the campaign target here is that I just want to increase footfall. I just want to get more feet through the actual store. Or it could be that I want to get more engagement in a particular merchandising area in the store. Or maybe it's around uplift and actual sales, more sales of that item. Critically, what we're able to do here is set up the campaign, and then because of that data fusion layer, where we have all of the machine vision of what's coming in, all of the point of sale data, right? We can then go and just run the analytics straight on that campaign and say, is that campaign hitting its target or not? And if it is, the agent can continuously monitor the spend, keep the campaign live, and if it's not, it kills it. No human intervention required. Now, you can run that in a fully autonomous mode. You can run it in a co-pilot mode. Maybe you need a little bit of time, right, to build up the trust and let it go and do its own thing, or you just want to fire and forget. What we've seen so far, people run it once, they see that it works, and it's like, you know what, that is just saving me huge amounts of time. What's interesting about that is how we take all of the benefits of that and then quantify it in a way that is super simple for the CFO to see. So just one other agent that I'll show you. If it's not obvious already, I would quite happily talk for hours, but I won't. So let me show you one other agent. And that is if we go into our coaching agent. So let me just tee this up for a moment. The ICP, the bread and butter of who we focus on and who we sell to, are large multi-site retail operators and groups. In some cases, they have multiple different brands like LVMH operating across multiple countries, hundreds or thousands of stores. And generally speaking, the way they will operate is, if you take this concept, you'll have a manager at a store level, you'll have an area manager managing a group of stores, regions, divisions, and so on. Now, one of our customers, just an example, Sleep Number in the US, they sell very expensive technology-enabled beds. They have around 600 stores, and they have a ratio of around 10 stores per area manager. So they need, anyway, around 60 area managers. And because of holidays and cover and so on, they actually have around 75. Now, if we can go and actually transform that ratio so Sleep Number only need one area manager per 20 stores, what would that look like from a financial impact standpoint, right, for Sleep Number? It's huge. How can we do that? Well, the typical workflow for an area manager each week is they effectively have to run a performance review on each store. They have to engage with the store manager. They have to do a gap analysis between what on target looks like versus where they are. And then they have to go through a remediation process. They'll generally speaking do an all hands call with all of the store managers. They'll do one-to-one interventions with low performers, high performers, store visits. They'll then have to manage up, higher up in the leadership level, and they have to do that every week, time in, time out. So what if all of that data fusion layer that we generate, and yes, there are all of these traditional dashboards here that show you everything that's going on and who's coming in and profiles and engagement and conversion. What if the store manager and area managers didn't need to look at all of that, right? What if you had your coaching agent, and in your coaching agent, you could actually send a performance review to each of your store managers as a podcast every day. They get a 2-minute digest that they can listen to on the way into work, or as a video summary, right? Tailored to each individual store, fully AI generated. Well, that might look something if I create a video, and hopefully the audio comes through on this. I don't know if it will. You can let me know, guys, if you hear it. So this is for a video summary for an area manager delivering this from one of our existing customers in the Nordics called Samso.
This week's store performance briefing is brought to you by Every Angle.
It's a bit laggy. Okay, it's a bit laggy. I think that's just my machine. Okay, I'll pause it there because the latency isn't doing any good. I think that's just sharing it on Zoom. The point here is, this is a 2.5-minute generated video that previously would have been a mixture of Excel analysis, PowerPoint presentation, weekly team meeting. We can deliver it in 48 different languages, right? It's created on a schedule basis. And that would be kind of, maybe you could argue, a really cool parlor trick if that's all that it did, okay? But embedded within that video is also a series of tasks, right, that the individual store manager now needs to complete in order to close that gap that's been identified. And those tasks, this is the cool thing. Firstly, right, in your coaching agent, you can go in, schedule the plan, decide what's most appropriate for each of those store managers. I've got a younger store manager, they're more into a podcast. I'm going to get better engagement. I can run the analytics to see who is actually engaging with what. And then the underlying tasks that recipient needs to complete that are embedded in the message that we're sharing with them, those underlying tasks are automatically added into the workflow management for that user. And then if those tasks are not completed, it's the recipient, it's the store manager who gets the kick in the ass to say, guys, you haven't done this, you need to do it. And all of that, whether it's actioned or whether it's not, all gets captured into the impact dashboard that we provide to the CFO level. And this is saying, look, these are the agents you have deployed. This is the actual impact we've generated in the organization. Here is the undeniable, quantifiable impact on that. How much more would you like? Right. And that since we've introduced this, the response that we've had, from existing customers, from new prospects, has literally been like jaw on the ground. There is just nothing like this in the market. I'm sure people will come and try and imitate and so on, but that's where I get back to, like, one of our core defensive moat elements here is the machine vision part of this. I promised I would just pull up one slide quick to kind of show you some of who we're actually working with. So here's just kind of a selection from, as I said, Disney, Next, Harvey Nichols, H&M, Ulta Beauty, and then on the hospitality side of things, Starbucks, Chipotle, Shake Shack, and then in terms of who's currently in the pipeline at the moment, Michael Kors, Versace, Jimmy Choo, Louis Vuitton in particular, and LVMH, Sephora, I don't know, loads. Are we, I get asked, like, are we fundraising? We're always fundraising. Okay, we're always fundraising. But I think the key thing here is that having a specialist investor who cares, who I suppose understands the linkage between the product and the go-to-market, who is not just focused on what's the go-to-market looking like, irrespective of really a care around the product. That's a really, really important thing for us as a founder. It's not to say that investors who are just focused on execution of go-to-market don't have value and don't have importance. But when you're dealing with this level of tech and you're really trying to bring it out to enterprise scale customers with all of the complexities that can bring with sales cycles, being backed by people who've been there, done that, worn the t-shirt multiple times, is hugely beneficial. Anything else you'd like me to say, Barry, DC?
That's fantastic, David. Listen, thank you very much for that. One thing maybe to note is that each of those brands has a multitude of stores behind them. We were talking the other day and you just casually dropped into conversation that you just signed a brand and you're rolling out to 600 stores. So that's kind of the scale at which you're operating at as well.
Yeah.
And maybe you touched on something there for in terms of investment as well. Clearly, as the companies that we invest in are growing and scaling in the way that David is growing and scaling, there are opportunities for our investors to co-invest with us in future rounds as well. Traditionally, we have provided co-invest rights to investors directly in the Sure Valley funds. But if there are any Mindflair or Sure Ventures investors on the webinar that are interested in co-invest rights, please reach out to me or please reach out to DC, and we'll be happy to include you in those types of opportunities, which the direct investors in Sure Valley get to date. We're happy to extend those as well. So David, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and very exciting times. And what DC is going to do now is he's just going to tee up some slides on how we work. And David, that was brilliant. Listen, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
So we've got a short number of slides to go through. We'll first of all, what I'd like to do is just describe how we originate opportunities. Then we'll talk about how we support the companies we invest in. And then we'll talk about what's going on at the moment, just the amount of activity that we have and news that we have, and in particular, how Mindflair and Sure Ventures investors can stay connected to what we're doing. But first of all, this is a slide that talks through how we actually find the amazing companies that we invest in. And there's broadly four key areas in that. First of all, there's kind of digital networking. There's also a data-driven approach. There is, of course, human networking on the ground as well. And there's brand building. So maybe just to talk, Izzy's going to talk about some of the activities that we have ongoing when we're out in the field, meeting companies, but I might just talk about data-driven for a moment. So data-driven is our analysis of what's going on in the market and proactive outbound to companies that might need funding to start to build that relationship with them. So to give you a concrete example of that, if you look at Google DeepMind based in London, if one of the technical staff or one of the executives leaves DeepMind and goes into stealth, we'll be able to pick that up and we'll do a proactive outbound to reach out to that founder, to talk to them about what they're doing, to see if they're in our space, and also to talk to them about how we can help them with investment and also through platform and support that DC is going to talk about. So we're not just on the ground meeting companies in London and across the UK and beyond into Ireland, but we're also proactively looking at what's going on in the market and proactively doing outbound. We're also very active on social media and using social media tools to reach out to founders as well. And then, of course, we also have a very strong brand building. And I think now that if you're a Mindflair or Sure Ventures investor, now that you're connected to us via this webinar, we're very happy to keep you up to date on news and also what's going on with the firm and the brand as well. Now, what that does result in is a huge volume of opportunities that come into our pipeline. And you can see that there in the center of the slide. You know, we look at thousands of startups and then we filter them. And we have a very structured and very rigorous investment management process that looks at these companies through a number of key filters. We start in the very early days with a 10-factor analysis. Then we go on to an 82-factor analysis. And then we go on to a 256-factor analysis. So we look at the company from all angles: the team, the product, the market opportunity, the growth opportunity of that company, the technology differentiation, and the opportunity for this company to have explosive growth. So we look at all of those when selecting and investing in companies. And hopefully from these two case studies that you've seen today, it'll give you a slightly deeper insight as to what's going on across all of the companies that we invest in. And these are two great examples, but of course, you will have seen from some of the companies that have exited and some of the companies that we've referred to today, there's so much activity going on, so much opportunity, and we're really in a boom of opportunity for these companies. So I suppose the first thing then is just to say we're incredibly active in reaching out and finding great companies to invest in. We have a rigorous and structured process for doing investment management. We're equity investors where we sit on the board and work with our companies. And now DC is going to talk about how we help those companies.
So, like many of our colleagues in the VC industry, you know, as well as just writing checks, we talk a lot, like the industry does, about value add. But I guess we would consider this a particular area of expertise for us because unlike 80% of the venture partners of the partners in VC firms in UK, we're actually more of the Silicon Valley model. Just to say the specifics of that. So if you go to a traditional Silicon Valley venture capital firm, about 80% of the partners in those funds will have been operators or will have been entrepreneurs themselves, and 20% of them will come maybe from a more traditional finance background. I guess unusually, but maybe not so unusually, in Europe, that ratio is essentially reversed, which is that 20% of the partners in venture funds are operators and entrepreneurs, and 80% come from more traditional, more risk averse backgrounds. So for us, we see it as a key part of our role, not just essentially to write a check into a company and then kind of just keep an eye on what's going on and read reports every quarter and see, is the money in and are the numbers all going in the right direction? We think our role is far more important than that. And we genuinely see our role as very much a value add. So the reality is, it's not just, we're not just passengers. Like our role as investors and as people who, as Barry has mentioned, sit on the board, we believe that we have genuine value to add to our companies. And as a consequence, we can hopefully, through our network of contacts and connections, add direct value to the companies, which, the more valuable the company, obviously, the more valuable our stake. That makes perfect sense. And I mean, I think just to cover a couple of key aspects of that is the fact that we, because of our own personal networks, we have built an unmatched portfolio advisory board of key experts across everything you can imagine, who our companies can access. And again, it's not in a, like, when I mean access, I mean everything from a formal meeting to going for coffees with. And just to kind of give you a sense of some of the people that are on our advisory board, we have people like the first global head of HR for Twitter, who is there to help them with not just scaling problems, but as the person who, scaled Twitter's thing from, 20 people to at one point 800 in Europe and obviously left before the Elon era, can talk a lot about not just traditional HR issues, but actually the scaling of people-led organizations. We also have people like, we mentioned earlier, programs like Microsoft for Startups. The former global head of Microsoft for Startups sits on an advisory board. So in terms of a startup taking advantage of, the Microsoft ecosystem, they're not coming in on the bottom rung. They're actually coming in on the top rung where they can speak to the former boss and have them give them advice on how to navigate the system. So we're really, really proud of being able to leverage these personal contacts and connections we have to the value of the portfolio companies. So what we tend to do is, without getting into big complex diagrams, but there is a notion of like before we invest in a company, we determine, well, here we call it the areas of improvement. And obviously these are areas that we've gone into as part of our due diligence program. And we've identified straight away that, one of the key value adds that we can do here beyond just increasing the bank balance is, that problem that a company is struggling with, we can sit down with them and very quickly help solve that. So, it's listed on this diagram here as the due diligence gap analysis. Like what are the things that, don't have an effect really on our decision to invest because we know that it's a problem that's easily solved by delivering in, real world experience to founders who just maybe haven't hit that part of their journey yet. Once we invest in a company, once we've kind of shored up, we'll say, some of these challenges, we always prepare what we call a kind of a development plan where we think very much about, where that company is this year, where it needs to get to next year. And because we're always thinking about that next funding round. And I guess having that deep experience of done it ourselves and also with the number of companies we've invested in at this stage, while a company might be solely thinking about their next commercial milestones, we're always thinking and trying to predict ahead for them the milestones that they're going to have to hit in order to be able to get not just the next funding round, but actually to get the funding round on the terms and uplift in valuation that benefit them and obviously also benefit us as investors. So this process continues on as we work from pre-seed stage to seed stage to Series A stage. and beyond. And at every stage, we look for, what's the information they need right now in terms of progressing. And as a consequence, one of the things we're very proud of is the number of our companies that actually do make it to those next rounds, compared to the industry averages, the amount of our companies that do get to Series A or that do transfer from, the pre-seed stage to the seed stage. And I think as well as that, I will say one kind of extra thing on this is just we're also very lucky in that many of the LPs that have invested directly in the Sure Valley funds actually also come from entrepreneurial backgrounds themselves, which, as Barry mentioned, one of the reasons that we have such a strong co-invest culture is because, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who, when they look at the companies that they've invested in through the funds, they also see places where they can add value. So, there is a real sense of, while we are the financiers behind these companies, I think most of their CEOs would tell you that they feel like there's always a group of people, both in terms of the next two layers back of people who are more than happy to support them, ask their questions, open their address books, and all these other things that can be, in some cases, just as important as money.
Oh, and don't forget NVIDIA as well, by the way. Yeah, absolutely.
Don't forget NVIDIA. Yeah. We've actually seen that a lot, Dave mentioned there, and you saw too, the deep levels of technologies, in particular, say in something like computer vision, that a lot of our companies are actually operating in. It's kind of a particular area of expertise for us. And obviously, like, right at the top of the technology stack there is NVIDIA. So being able to get early access to test models in NVIDIA, that can be the difference between, one performance range and another performance range.
Totally. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we'll wrap up in the next 5 minutes. This slide is really just to highlight that lots of other leading investors have invested in companies that we've found and led the initial rounds into, and those other investors come from UK, Europe, Asia, and also Silicon Valley as well. And I'm sure you will recognize many of the great brands that we have invested with. So I'll hand you over to Izzy now. We'll talk about some of the ongoing activity that we've got on the ground.
Yes, just to wrap up quickly, I just wanted to highlight some of the amazing kind of conferences, events, speaking opportunities that we've seen recently. And just to give you an idea, the names listed on this slide is really just a very small snapshot of the events that our team attend on a day-to-day basis. These conferences are some of the biggest conferences, not just in Europe, but around the world. And to give you an idea, companies pay thousands and thousands of pounds to speak on stage. Luckily, we have been selected to speak organically at these events, which is fantastic for our brand, and puts us in a really strong position to really meet with and connect with the very best founders. Obviously, VC is an extremely competitive industry. And I think, as Barry mentioned, brand building is so critical for us, because not only are we outreaching and meeting as many founders as possible, but we want our brand to be as attractive as possible to really get the best founders in the door and for them to choose us as well on highly selective rounds. So that kind of leads me on to the rebrand that we've done recently. Really just to simplify our brand and our messaging and make it as easy as possible for founders to get in touch with us and to connect with us. So you can check us out at www.svv.ai, and I'll have the links at the end of my slides. And then initiatives. So hopefully some of you tuned into our AI webinar series. There were 3 webinars, perhaps one particularly of interest on our investment framework and how we kind of invest in AI and see the market. And those are also available on our website. Next slide, please. And yes, as I mentioned, just to wrap up, I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the events that we attend. You can see there an event with Stripe at the AI Summit. You can see there various events with HubSpot, Imperial University, the National AI Meet, Connected Britain, where we had a keynote, which was fantastic, another organic opportunity. And then the British Venture Capital Association Summit as well, which is fantastic. And kind of to add to this, we also do a lot of ecosystem work. giving back as much as possible to the ecosystem, which in turn leads to really fantastic inbound and deal flow, which is great. And just last slide, do you see? And then just perhaps more importantly, some of our portfolio highlights. Barry and DC would have mentioned the AWS cohort. Is actually a less than 2% acceptance rate for that, which is fantastic to see 2 of our companies on that program. There's also the KPMG accelerator. And then you can see there Alex from Visgard speaking on BBC News. Stylus, Dominic from Stylus has been invited to 10 Downing Street, has also been recently awarded funding by the UK government, which is fantastic for his AI education and innovation. And then today we would have shared a piece of news around one of our recent companies, Literal Labs, a Newcastle University spin-out that's been selected as one of the top startups to watch this year. So if you go on to the last slide, DC, as I said, just a really small, short snapshot of some of the incredible portfolio successes. We share all of this on our LinkedIn. Please do follow us. Please do engage with us. We're also on X and YouTube as well. And yeah, we constantly share news, some of our team successes, new investments, everything related to that. And yeah, please do monitor our website as well. And we'll make sure that everyone here is added to our investor newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Izzy. And thank you, everybody, for joining. It's a great pleasure to have 2 of our companies share the good news about what they're doing, and also for us to have an opportunity to talk to you about the work that we're doing. I couldn't be more proud of the team and the work that we're doing. I'm really excited about the opportunities that our companies have. In particular, I would love it if you're a Mindflair or a Sure Ventures PLC investor. Please do connect with us. Please do sign up to our LinkedIn and our X and also our website, and you'll receive news every single week. And you'll see actually we're very active on all of those channels, and we have a regular newsletter that goes out as well. So we really do want to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. Please feel free to reach out to me or DC or Brian or Izzy at any stage. And thank you for joining today. And look out for some really important and exciting updates as we go towards the back end of this year. Thank you.